Hey there, interwebs. It's time for the next installment of me getting mileage out of Shad's idea of matching pre-modern weapons to fantasy races. Last time I took a look at the best weapons for tree people, and now it's time for DRIDERS. Cards on the table, I love spiders, but I'm not so fond of DRIDERS. For starters, their anatomy is completely baffling. After making this video though, I don't dislike them anymore. Now I'm just terrified instead. First of all, we need to establish what is a DRIDER exactly. The name comes from drow, which is a dark elf, and spider, but to be honest I'm as lukewarm about the name as I am about the concept in general. I feel like I've seen human spiders just as often, if not more, than drow spiders. For the remainder of this video, I'm going to call them by the more inclusive name arachneans, named after the Greek mythological character. Now, what traits can we ascribe to these creatures? If the top half is a drow, it has an elf's more sensitive vision and hearing than humans, and it's more dexterous and graceful in addition to the drow's spidey senses. The spider half often has the ability to spin webs, climb walls and ceilings, and they can move silently if they want. Some versions also give them a stinger like a wasp to incorporate the idea of a spider's venom. Drow are also commonly associated with usage of poisoned weapons. Now the question of strength arises. Spiders have a much higher strength to body mass ratio than humans, but this is partly due to their small overall mass. The world's heaviest spider is the Goliath bird eater, which weighs about 175 grams, and most spiders are minuscule. It's not just a ratio trick though. According to entomologist Dr. Brian Fisher, exoskeletons impart more mechanical advantage than comparative endoskeletons. Spiders don't actually have conventional mammalian muscles. Their movement is powered by hydraulic pressure of their hemolymph, which is their version of blood. This all might make the spider half stronger, but the humanoid half still has an endoskeleton and couldn't logically reap this benefit. Nevertheless, the spider half would still be able to move very fast. The huntsman spiders Berigama aurea and Hulconia hirsuta have top speeds of 31 and 42 body lengths per second, respectively. For reference, Usain Bolt tops out at a mere 5.2. Even if an arachnean only has a fraction of this speed, they'd still be many times faster than a human. These speed demons are also relatives of the world's largest spider by length, the giant huntsman, who reaches wingspans of nearly 30 centimeters. Aurea, by the way, is the second largest by length. There is another kind of movement observed in spiders: jumping. I've never seen this in arachneans though, but it's fun to consider. To recapitulate, arachneans are very fast, stealthy, graceful, and perceptive, and they can spin webs, climb walls, and have powerful legs which may enable super jumps. Yikes. Next, we have to consider their environment. They're typically seen in dark places, primarily caves and thick forests, which seems logical considering their heightened senses. Now we can finally move on to finding the right weapons. They're sort of eight-legged versions of centaurs, so are centaur weapons the best choices for them? I say no. Centaur weapons capitalize on the creature's speed, which arachneans certainly have, but they're employed in the charge, and charging and swinging long two-handed weapons isn't feasible in thick forests or cramped subterranean caves. Furthermore, the charge is more effective as a group tactic, and arachneans generally seem to be solitary creatures. Charging towards the enemy across the ground isn't capitalizing on the arachnean's unique ability to climb walls. In battle, if you've got a unique advantage, you use it, and mobility is their fight winner. Not only do they have speed and climbing abilities, if they're in their usual environment and know a fight's coming, they can spin webs in strategic locations that limit their enemy's movement. With their speed and stealth, they can sneak up, hit you, and run off before you have time to react. They can also put themselves out of reach in the boughs of trees or high up on walls and ceilings. This could be another reason why you so often see them in caves and forests. From this point of relative safety, they need a good ranged weapon to attack with, and I think they've got a few decent options. We already know that elves and bows work well together. The advantage of the light draw-weight short bow is that they can draw and shoot lots of arrows very quickly. If you combine this with their ability to run around their enemies very fast, ascend vertical surfaces, and possibly jump great distances, being attacked by one would be just as bad as being surrounded on all sides and above. I think they'd also have the advantage over centaurs that they can shoot steadily while moving, since 8 legs create a more stable platform. Running spiders don't have the same bounce as a galloping horse. Even better than the short bow, in my opinion, is the heavy crossbow. Historically, light to medium strength crossbows were spanned by putting your foot in a stirrup, holding the string with your hands or a belt hook, and extending your legs. Arachneans may not have exceptional arm strength, but the power comes from the legs, which are quite strong indeed. They could use much heavier crossbows without the need for mechanical assisters, like cranks and pulleys. I also know that spiders can run on their hind legs with their forelimbs up in the air. An arachnean might ostensibly be able to run on 7 legs and use the 8th to span while on the move. Just imagine, you and your party are marching through a forest and you come upon a huge web. You turn back and try a different route, but this is blocked too. You keep running into dead ends, and then suddenly this heavy crossbow bolt shoots down from somewhere in the canopy and kills one of your comrades. Everyone left starts shooting at where it came from, and then another crossbow bolt hits you from behind. Suddenly they're coming from every direction all at once, and you can't find who's shooting them. You don't know how many attackers there are. Your only option is to retreat, but the arachneans are faster than you, sticking right on your tails, picking you off one by one until you're all dead. Ugh. Maybe you do manage to glimpse one, though, as it darts among the shadows. What armor is it wearing? Typically, if they're wearing any armor at all, it's usually just on the humanoid half, as is the case with these sorts of creatures: centaurs, merfolk, snake people. I can't argue with a nice set of plate armor, though in gaming, heavy armor tends to carry stealth penalties. The spider portion is rarely seen armored, though, and if any justification is given, it has to do with the exoskeleton. Now, chitin is very strong, and arachneans probably have it fairly thick. But is it enough? Possibly. Would more armor be better? Probably. Arachneans are usually shown with human levels of intelligence, so they'd be able to make custom arachnid armor for their legs and abdomen, and their enhanced strength would allow them to carry it with ease. Again, the only reason I can think of not to is to remain stealthy, but I think finding the noisy parts and installing padding could be done. As with centaurs, a shield wouldn't do much to defend the back half, so it's probably not worth it, and all the more reason to armor up. All that's left is to find the right melee weapon for them. We have fast, well-armored creatures of medium strength with both hands free and improved senses. I believe two-handed weapons should be the most logical choice, as they were with the centaurs, but unlike centaurs, whom I would give slashing and smashing weapons, I'd give arachneans more thrust-focused pole weapons, specifically pole weapons with very long shafts, like the sarissa. If the arachneans can climb up a tree or wall and go somewhere the enemy can't follow, they want a weapon that can outreach their opponents, allowing them to make attacks from a point of safety. But what if they're in an open area, or somewhere else where they can't climb? Long thrust weapons are still optimal for a solid poke-and-move strategy. A common disadvantage brought up in the context of polearms is enemies getting inside the effective range, and the longer the reach, the greater this threatened distance becomes. Matt from Scala Gladiatoria has made a video proving this not to be the death sentence it's often described as, but I maintain it's still a concern. That is, it's a concern for humans. An arachnean doesn't have this issue because they can retreat faster than humanoids can close in, putting the distance back in their favor. Furthermore, with a drow's grace and keen vision, they may have an easier time spotting weak points in armor and thrusting into them. The other benefit of a longer haft comes into play when we consider arachneans' solitary nature. If they're on their own against multiple people, a very long weapon allows them to sweep a large area and threaten multiple opponents at once. The other disadvantage, though, is leverage. When your weapon has a large head, you need a short haft, and if you have a very long haft, you have to keep the weight down in the head, reducing cutting ability, and arachneans lack the arm strength to compensate. However, a weapon like the partisan, used by yeomen of the guard and corporals of the pontifical Swiss guard, strikes a balance between lightweight and retaining cutting abilities. To wrap up, arachneans would be best in full armor from the waist up, possibly from the waist down as well, depending on their exoskeleton. Tactics rely on ambushes from somewhere high and making sneak attacks with heavy crossbows, and fighting in melee with long thrusting spears. But that's just my opinion. If you liked it and want more, why not show your support by picking up one of my ebooks linked below in the description. You get a book, and I get a few bucks and the incentive to make more of these videos for you. Everybody wins. Thanks for everything, and have a nice day. Whom I would give slashing and smashing weapons. Have to cut that out. Take two.